Hello everyone and welcome to our Global Virtual Telco Pride 2024. I am Natalia Farfan Santos, my pronouns are she, hers, and I'm very honored and excited, genuinely excited for today's session. Being an ally of the LGBTQI+ community, it is very close to my heart, part of my personal and professional purpose. As part of my everyday at work, I have the privilege to work for a more inclusive Ericsson as head of diversity and inclusion programs. But also in my personal life, I get inspired by the resilience and courage of everyone who fight for the rights to be heard and seen. Today's event, it's not only an event or a celebration. This is the third year in a row that we are celebrating Global Telco Pride. And it is an opportunity that we found as an industry to really come together and celebrate Pride, to really say to the world that even if in the market we are competitors or partners, when it comes to LGBTQI+ rights, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to dignity and respect, we come together. So I really want to thank everyone and all the organizations who have made today possible. It has been a cross-company team. We have been working for months. So I want to thank Ericsson, Nokia, Telia, Tele2, Tresverie, Telenor, Telefonica, and Orange for being here with us today. And as I said, the most powerful part of today is that it is not one company, one perspective, but it is the whole industry coming together. Some of the most important and biggest organizations in the industry saying we are here for Pride. So because of that, as you could see maybe, I'm here today with Jérôme from Nokia. Thank you so much, Jérôme, for being here. Thank you for coming all the way from Paris. Welcome.
Thank you, Natalia. So I'm Jérôme, and my pronouns are he, they, and I am indeed from Nokia. And I'm so glad that I could join you today for this event after participating for the past couple of years and pick up the baton from Chris, who has been co-hosting this event for the past couple of years. So I have big shoes to fill. So quick things about me. So I have been part of the Nokia for the past almost 20 years. So as part of security research, but really the reason why I'm here today is partly because I'm the ERG co-lead, so our equal ERG. And I've also been co-creating the Outstanding Leaders program, which is a program that we have started back in 2019 at Nokia to really provide visibility across our own company to LGBT+ leaders, but also across our industry, which is why it's very important also for me to be here. I have been coming out at Nokia, or at least in the company, since we've changed shapes in the past couple 20 years. So I've been coming out since 2005 when I first started to work for the company in Malaysia, which was also, of course, an environment that is quite different from what we have here in Europe. But really, that was important to me. A few months after joining the company, to be able to be more honest about who I was, and also towards my colleagues. It quickly became clear that I needed to do this. And in the years since, so I've been part of the employee resource group Equal since I think around 2009, and I've seen firsthand the impact that this can have towards other employees wherever they are in the organization, across different regions, and why I've been involved in Equal, so our ERG, for the past almost 15 years. So it's really about having, seeing the tangible impact of bringing visibility to these topics, and why it's important to be here today, and the impact this can have also on folks who cannot come out yet. So because we know that not everybody can come out, and this is also part of the reason why we are here today. So I think, this is something that we get asked regularly. So why Pride? So what does it mean? And I think it's part of the reason why it can be a bit complicated is that it can mean different things to different people. And to me, it's just, it's a mix of, it is a protest, essentially. So it is something where we keep advocating for equal rights for people. And it is also a celebration of the diversity of the community and also the diversity of the allies that make this community possible. So it's not like I was asked a couple of weeks ago. So it's not about one community of people being different or better than the other. It's more about not rejecting shame, because it is really what Pride means, essentially. And it is also an expression of empowerment, because we really want to have people being able to celebrate, to this the ability to live authentically, and this is why we are very happy to be here today. So events like these really signal to people that they can be themselves in this industry. And I have heard many, across different positions that after they saw this type of event where we talk about LGBT plus inclusion, about allyship, that this is because of these events, or at least not because they saw one of these events, that they applied for a position, that they considered joining this industry where we have still a lot to do, I think, in terms of inclusion. But at least it's it's something that means a lot, I think, for a lot of people. So maybe with this, Natalia, I'll pass it back over to you on providing additional context, I think, for this event.
Thank you. We were discussing, I think, last week, and you were sharing with me about like these questions, right? Like, why do we have to celebrate in particular like one specific community? And last year, I shared a couple of facts, a couple of data points about the LGBTQ community and what this also community is experiencing. And I want to refresh our minds because I think it is, although I bet that everyone getting together today understand and know why it is a good reminder. Last year, I shared that still in 2023, back then, 65 countries still are criminalizing same-sex relationships. For this year, we still have 62. So the number has decreased, but it's still, the progress is quite slow. In the 90s, it was 113, and 2024, we have 62. I shared last year that only in 34 countries, you could really run and legalize a same-sex marriage. For 2024, that's 36 countries. And if we think also about our day-to-day and at the workplace, there is this very interesting study by Randstad, and they were sharing that out of everyone that they interviewed, 40% of the people and 30% of the LGBTQI plus workers still say that they face discrimination at the workplace. 36%, they say that they prefer to work remotely because still offices don't feel inclusive enough for them to join. And 32% decide to take alternate career paths, again, because of those concerns of discrimination. So such a good reminder of, like, some people might say 30%, it's not that big, but actually it should be zero. No one should change their careers. No one should not want to go to the office because that environment doesn't feel inclusive enough. So thanks for sharing that. And again, like a good reminder on why we are here. And that's why we also have created this, hopefully you feel the same amazing agenda for everyone. If you have heard maybe or you have seen, we have created the agenda on the theme of allow, accept, and ally. So Jerome, tell us a little bit more about what we are going to go through today and how that agenda looks like.
Sure, Natalia. So we have an exciting agenda for you today, featuring speakers from across, from different levels of leadership within the organization. We have a keynote speaker that I will introduce shortly, and we have especially, personal stories to tell, and because this is really one of the key things when we do these events, to share stories, because this is what people can relate to. And after our keynote speakers, we'll hear from senior leaders from the different organizations, and then followed by a panel that Natalia will be moderating from folks within the LGBT plus community, as well as allies, to dive deeper into these topics. So before I get started, so a few housekeeping items. We will record the session, and we'll make it available shortly after we end the session, so over at telcopride.eu. We have a chat available with our co-organizers, Ceci and Lisa, moderating this chat. So feel free to ask your questions as we go towards within the session. At any time, you can ask questions. We'll do our best to address them after the keynote session, during the panel. And we really welcome and encourage curiosity, but make sure that that this comes from a place of kindness, and we'll be moderating the content as required. With this out of the way, so let's get started with our first segment, which is with our keynote speaker. And with this, maybe a bit of an introduction. So we will come back to this regularly towards, during this event. But one of the easier things that you can do as participating into this event and as becoming an ally, if you are not already, is to really allow yourself to listen and to learn from others. This is really something where, as I said, personal stories is what makes us relate and connect as fellow human beings. And this is exactly what we'd like to do, as part of this first section and with our guests today in this global virtual Telco Pride. Our keynote speaker is someone we first invited at Nokia last year as part of our Outstanding Leaders program, and whom we kept inviting back because he has such a powerful story and really is a great advocate for the LGBTQ+ community and can really put it into concrete terms of what it means to be an ally. So that's why we invited him back into this event. And he has been really a powerful voice in Finland and abroad. So he's been speaking from his experience as a person who happens to be trans and also from Turkish and Finnish heritage. And his power is really to understand people, why people do what they do. And he puts these skills really in use by creating the connections between the people and bringing them together. So please help me welcome to this virtual stage Dakota Robin. Dakota, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's always lovely to be working with Nokia and now with other telecompanies as well. Today I have only 15 minutes, so I try to keep it as powerful I can. There is some microphone on whispering in the studio. Okay. Yeah, the studio microphone was on, but I hope you hear me now. So yeah, my name is Dakota Robin. I have been consulting and training companies all around the world now almost 10 years about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And my own background is the reason why I basically started my career in this field. Like I was mentioned, my background is that my dad is Kurdish from Turkey and my mom is from Finland. I was born in Switzerland, but I was raised in Finland in a small town. When I was 3 years old, we moved to Finland, to the small town. And then I also, like when I came to Finland, my grandparents take care of like, they're kind of like raising me and my brother. And I would say that the path from trying to find yourself started from there. I was 3 years old when I mentioned to my grandparents that I'm a boy, but they were assuming that I was a girl. So that was already a really tricky situation, because not that people who want to do their best and support us maybe don't have the capability or all the knowledge and understanding what we really need to be supported. So I always say that people try to do their best with what that people do their best and try to do their best with the knowledge and skills that they have. But like my grandparents, they didn't have, because nobody was talking about, that, gender identity is more than just a man and a woman. Nobody have talked about trans people, even that, even in the history, we can see that there is trans people and non-binary people have been already like in many actually native culture. But this was something that we were hiding, and why we hide this knowledge and why we didn't discuss about this knowledge was because we were so fear of people being different. And I was raised in such an environment that being different was never seen as a good thing or beneficial for our community or in our environment. We learned to understand that it's better to be like everybody else or pretend to be like everybody else and express yourself like everybody else. That's more beneficial, like copying each other, than actually bringing your unique traits. And that I was getting this, I was raised to fit in rather than belong, which created this image for me that that it's more useful for me to learn to read what other people needs from me or other people expect from me, or what is the other people's needs, and how can I fulfill those needs rather than learn who I am and what is my needs. So I think that we still are raising people for this culture that it's, somehow more useful or better for you to fulfill other people's needs and never fulfill your own. And that is when we are putting people to fit in rather than belong. And the small town when I grew up was like similar culture that like I was discussed. I told that, fitting in was how you survive in the environment, and how we keep now this belongingness kind of like a gatekeeper to keep this stereotypically like ideas and beliefs about what is normal as a human being to be, and how we create these norms and keep these norms alive in our environment is that we use shame. I was shamed always when I act out of so-and-so character. So the character that I was given to be a good girl, and that was never actually who I really was, but that was the character that I was given. And always if I act out somehow from the expectations from others, for me, I was shamed for it. And how we use this shame to keep these like norms alive is like an example. I have a lot of male friends who have told me that already in such a young age, they have this like a memory that when they were group among other guys, and they maybe did something like they could be play football, they were doing something as a group, and then one person in a group start to act out of the expectations what we have for boys. It could be that they play football, somebody fall down, they hit their knee, and the normal physical reaction when you have pain is that it's coming tears in your eyes. And that's nothing to do with your gender identity. Like if you put the thumb in a table and somebody hit it so hard with I don't know, whatever, but if somebody caused you pain, we know that the normal human reaction is, that you are starting getting tears in your eyes. But when the boys start to react that like humane way from their own needs, expressing themselves, how we as a community control the behavior that we don't want is we shame them for that. It could be that they were questioning about their sexuality, which was really harmful because when they were being called gay, in such a humiliating ways, that was connected that being gay was less being a man. Being gay was humiliating. Being gay was something really bad and shameful and making you weaker. And that was already causing these stereotypic beliefs that what is actually your sexuality, and is being gay actually less and something bad or wrong, or that you're going to be humiliated by. Also, it caused then problems because if it wasn't that we use the sexuality, then it was called like, oh, you are something like a girl, so less like a man, you are like a girl. So we created these beliefs that actually the feminine people are more weaker or more humiliating, and that then we raise boys who are seeing feminine sides as humiliating sides and less, and that's how we can see in society how people are also treating more feminine presenting people. And that's really harmful, not just the individual who learn that they can express fully their needs, because otherwise they're not safe. Because if the person act out of their character and we shame them for it and they don't stop the behavior, then we are the last tool what we kind of, or I would say weapon that we use, that if the shame is not enough, then we are not basically rejecting them. So we are like, then we are not playing with you, then you're out, then you're going to be left alone. And that is really kind of like powerful mechanism, because we all need belongingness. We all need to feel that we belong to someone bigger group. And if we are left out, how we will survive. And I was raised in similar ways. So I learned to copy my environment and realized that, all the traits, the unique traits that make me who I was and what can I bring to the table was actually, I I could never bring those out. And then all the things, all the power that I was, everything that I was good at was never seen as my, power, because those were only seeing that if I would be a boy and good in those things, then we would embrace you for your strength. But because they didn't see me in that character, they didn't see me as a boy, then they never recognize my real strength and individual. They only see what should I be? And if I didn't fulfill those needs, then I was always weaker, incapable, and something bad, or I was never enough. And this is how we are treating each other still. And this is something I really want to challenge. What is really being normal? Because if we see, sexuality, we see being gay is different. But being gay is different from being straight. But being straight is different from being gay as well. So what is actually the normal, what is not? There is not normal. Both of those things are being different from each other, but nothing is really normal. If we think about, we always see this normal human being more valued in our culture. It could be in Finnish culture, it could be skin color, religion, it could be sexuality that we embrace, that's normal. But if you think about that Finnish so-and-so normal person, we bring that up outside of Finland. We take the environment away and the culture away around this normal person and bring that to Africa. What happened to the normal person? Now they are different. So, but did anything change inside the person, in the individual, their strength, their capability, their value? Nothing really changed. Now what changed was how we react outside, how the environment see them and react to this person. So, we have to stop believing that some people are just different and that's less from being normal, because we all are different from each other. We have to stop to be scared of being the difference and allow people to bring their unique traits, because that's the richness, and that's how we have survived as a human being and generations, that we bring different strength. Because like I said, nobody have all the knowledge and nobody's perfect. I have my stories and my background had taught me a lot of things that your life had never taught you, but then your life had taught you a lot of things and giving tools that I have never learned. So we can teach each other and we can complete each other. So if we are only learning to hire the similar people and thinking that we all live the similar ways, we only copying the weaknesses and strength we already have. Then when we are allowing people to bring their unique traits, we complete each other more. Then when we talk about the inclusiveness is not that we are saying you can be one of us, but don't talk about your families, or don't bring your sexuality. We all always often think about this LGBTQ plus I like people that they there is a lot of still this images or beliefs that if somebody want to talk about their sexuality and be out, is that it's really sexual thing. But bringing their sexuality to work or gender identity is not what do you do in your bedroom. We don't care about that. Don't bring that in the workplace. It's that we are allowing people to talk about their families, the people who matters to them. We are allowing the people tell what they did in the weekend when everybody else is in the coffee break telling that they were there and there with their wife and kids. That actually also we can bring and tell what we did with our loved ones in the weekends. We are allowed to talk about the people who matters to us, and we are allowed to put our family pictures in the tables. We are allowed to put our wedding pictures in the table in the workplace. That's allowing us to be who we really are in the workplace, and not just okay, you can be who you are, but we don't need to know what you do in the bedroom. That's not the case. So we have to understand what is really being inclusive and why it's really important. Then I often hear also a lot of questions when people hear that I'm transgender. They can be surprised or not surprised, but then I can see the difference, how they switch quickly from okay, they are basically treating me and respect my privacy like everybody else, but when they hear suddenly that I'm transgender, they forgot my privacy. And somehow they think that being curious always is a sign for that person that I care or I want to understand or know. But being curious is not always a sign of acceptance. Being curious can also be discriminating, and it can be harassing. And often when we meet people who go different kind of path that we go, we forgot their privacy because we are so curious, that we are so thirsty for knowledge, that we kind of put the individual and their life story and really private things as that they are responsible to make us less thirsty with our curiosity. So we want them to fulfill our needs with their story. And if we ask questions and they feel uncomfortable, we get upset. It's like, well, then I don't care then. Like if then I don't need to ask any question. It's like, but what question you ask and who you are, who is asking it. And is this knowledge really belonging to you? So I always say, rather ask than get great assumptions. And I tell the story quickly why. But I would say what, where, when, and how. When, like I have a friend who is openly lesbian, and she have wife and 2 kids. And every time when people hear that she have biological children with her wife, people start to be asking questions like, so how did you and your wife, like how the kids have been getting this, like how did the kids, and nobody's really saying out loud, but kind of like signing, like how did basically the kids, like how they can have a biological children. And she's always so confused to such a private question, and she's asking, so what sex position you use with your husband or your wife? And people are always like, whoa, that's really private question, like this doesn't belong to you. But that's exactly the same question you're asking from the lesbian couple who have biological children. Or people ask what kind of body parts or I have, or what surgery have I done. But those are the things I could never ask what you have in your pants or under your clothes, or if I hear you have a queer or trans or queer partner, I could never ask what they have or size or whatever. That's really private things. But we forgot the privacy. But we have to allow also, understand that not that the marginalized people or the minority people, they are not just responsible to give all the knowledge or use their own story because we are thirsty for the knowledge. And we have to remember who we are, what we ask, where we ask, not the full coffee break, because then the peer pressure to answer. And when we ask it, are we always just basically seeing the new colleague or the people only for the label, like, oh, this person is trans, so only what we are interested about the trans side of them, and that's only what we see. But actually, like where they come from, what they like to do, hobby, getting to know them, not just about the things that you feel like making them different from you. And intention. What is intention? If you're asking questions, like as a colleague for me, like, so Dakota, how did your parents, took when you came out? That's like not helping me in my work environment to work as a transgender. Also, it can actually be some trauma that I don't want to discuss or I have wanted to forget. But now you set me back to the memory that I already maybe wanted to forget, and that's not taking your energy of your day. But maybe now when you ask that question, Dakota, can anymore actually keep doing the work day, or maybe it can be taking week out for Dakota's like energy to focus on the work things, because now Dakota thinking about maybe Dakota's parents are not anymore there or not accepting him. So we don't know what's behind it. So let's be really sensitive with these kind of things. If you want to understand about the trans person who is open, not everybody, let's allow that not everybody wants to be open or outside the closet, and that's all their rights. But I say, like, if somebody is openly trans, and if you want to ask questions to help them out or understand the trans experience, you can maybe ask, can I ask it? And if I ask something that I shouldn't ask, please let me know so I don't ask this ever again. And then if the person say, yeah, you can ask, then you can ask something like, so because you're openly trans, is there anything as your colleague you would want me to consider, or do you need me to consider something, or do you want us as a company to consider, or think about the trans thing more, or do you need something from us? This is something that actually with your questioning, also the trans person is benefiting from this conversation, not just that it's your curiosity is getting fulfilled. And assumption quickly, before we have some questions, why assumption could be really dangerous is that assumptions breaks people's wings for being a lot of times different, because we don't realize that we have lived in such a heteronormative environment. So often our first questions can be also really heteronormative. If you think about, you ask questions like, do you have a wife or a girlfriend at home? That is a sign for the new colleague that it's safer in the new environment, and you really want to belong to the place and get friends and be a part of the bigger group. If you are asked from among other peers in a new environment, you don't trust them yet, and you are new worker, and you want to actually really be part of the team. If you are asked such a heteronormative question, you maybe don't feel comfortable straight away saying like, okay, actually I'm gay. It could be that you just want to get away from the difficult situation. You just go with it and you say like, yeah, I do. But what about if you have a husband and kids at home? That's a difficult situation. Now you made the person to actually closet themselves just because they are too afraid in the situation, new environment, and only what they kind of read it's way safer in this work environment, be hetero. So asking about partners, if you want to ask who is single, who is not, that's more inclusive way to ask. So let's not create assumptions. And also, what we have to understand that if we realize already that being straight is not a choice. So we have to understand that being gay is not a choice either, or be pan or whatever. Sexuality is not a choice for any of us. It's not just that the normal, like in society, normal things is not a choice, and everything from that is a choice from not being normal. It's not. So it's the same, like if straight is not a choice, no other sexuals are either, or just gender identities. They are not a choices. We're born with those things, we are those things, and we have to allow people to be those things. And I always say that we have this assumption that before we fully understand some people's experience, we can accept it and allow that. But I don't understand your life decisions, how you want to live your life, what food you like, what hobbies you like, what relationship you like. I don't understand every single religion, but I can still allow you to live your life as long you don't do anything criminal. But then we have a law for that. But as long you just live your life and expressing yourself and be you, I can allow you to be you, even I don't understand everything you want to do or how you want to live your life. So don't wait to understand before you allow people to be who they are around you. But that is now the short keynote for today. Thank you for listening. My name is Dakota Robin, and here is also my details if you ever need more workshops or any questions. I also help a lot of queer people's families, and so I'm happy to help if you have any questions for me. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dakota, for sharing those, your story with us, and really, I think what was at least very interesting to me is the theme around, what in terms of self-acceptance and how this can help you in terms of personal growth and happiness, really. And also, I liked the fact that you reminded that we don't need everyone to come out, but we need to create the space for people to be allowed to come out, right? So that's something also that that is important to repeat as we want to make sure that we are inclusive also on that topic. So maybe we have 1 minute for a question, so I'll go quickly to one of the questions we got in the chat to you, Dakota. So what or who would you have needed in your life when you were a child or teenager?
I would need a person like myself. I'm trying to be the safe, accepting, empathic, compassionate human being and father figure, even I don't have my own children, to what I would need it. And I'm not blaming for my grandfather for that. It's that because the environment he grew up and the knowledge he have got, like he did best with those things. So, but now I have more knowledge, and now I can kind of, be. So I'm trying to be that kind of man that I would need it as a child, and that is a lot of like acceptance and safetyness and also this unconditional caring and loving. Like a role model also, I wish that I would, as a transgender, have role models from happy trans people stories. Stories that the world is open and you can succeed and you can have a good job and family and friends and be loved and happy. But a lot of times, even in the start of my career, always all the magazines were interviewing wanted to hear like how hard was it and how bad you felt. And those stories are important because people can also understand that they're not in the pain alone, but we need also the positive things like, okay, actually I can see myself in a leader position. I can see myself there. I can see myself happy and a healthy and loved and lovable person and just like a normal in our society. So that's what I want to also bring up.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dakota. And indeed, yeah, the importance of role models is something that we still need, for a bunch of different, for the whole community. So yeah, very important indeed that we keep re-emphasizing that. So thank you, Dakota. We always wish we could have more time, but now let's turn to the next section of the agenda. All right, so for the next section, we're going to talk about allyship. And I think the first thing that people may ask is, what's an ally? Allies are really folks who can help create safe and inclusive spaces for LGBT plus people so that they can, express their identities and feel safe without fear of discrimination or prejudice. So they can serve as role models, which ties back to what we were just discussing. They can demonstrate inclusive behaviors and attitudes that others can emulate. So they are very important in terms of, role modeling these type of behaviors. But this is what I'm saying, so don't just take my word for it. We have some short testimonials from folks and senior leaders across our different companies. So we'll hear first from Telenor, Ericsson, Orange, and Telefónica.
From my perspective, diversity, simply put, is about recognizing and celebrating the differences that exist in all of us as human beings. Which means at our workplace, we should bring in all of us together, bring our differences in, whether it's age, gender, what we believe in, who we are.
Inequality often stems from a lack of understanding. And as an ally, I ensure that I take the time to listen and understand different perspectives, especially those from the LGBTQ community. I'm committed to developing working practices where equality and inclusion is based on a deep understanding of diverse perspectives. I believe we should welcome and embrace our differences and allow people to be their authentic selves. And being an ally is about listening, it's about learning, and it's about understanding as well.
I believe allyship is crucial in a company to support the LGBTQ+ community. It helps create an inclusive and welcoming environment where all employees feel safe, valued and respected. Allies can advocate for equal rights, challenge discrimination, unconscious bias and help create safe spaces where LGBTQ+ employees feel comfortable being their authentic selves.
We must use our position, our voice and our strength to actively support the rights, belonging and well-being of every LGBT+ individual. So, guys, enjoy Telco Pride, make connections and especially join forces to promote everyone's well-being because we are all in the same boat.
And that's the video, and we are very happy to see that from the top of all of our organizations, we are really walking the talk when it comes to allyship. I want to contribute to that allyship castle with my own brick, and I really like this book on savvy allyship. And they summarize very well allyship. They talked allyship is about listening, amplifying, and speaking up. Listening the community experiences, amplifying those messages, really in like being their voice, not speaking on their behalf, but just amplifying those messages and then speaking up when we see any injustice. And in the light of listening the community's experiences and speaking up as allyships, now we are moving forward to our panel. We have 5 incredible panelists today. They are going to share with us some of their most transformative experiences and also some good tips and tricks on allyship. We have Lilian from Nokia, Javier from Telefonica, Chris from Telia, Steve from Ericsson, and Clarissa from Orange. So welcome everyone. So happy to see you. We have been discussing for months and now the day arrived. So thanks for being here. Let's please share with the audience who you are, why you are here. Lilian, can you please start?
Sure, thank you. So yeah, my name's Lilian, indeed, pronounced she, her. I'm a transgender woman. I'm also an engineer and a researcher at heart. I became a manager for a team of researchers in Nokia Bell Labs a few years ago now. In terms of LGBTQ plus work, I'm part of our Nokia employee resource group named Equal that Jérôme already mentioned earlier. So about raising awareness on LGBTQ plus topics in the company. And I'm also part of this year's Nokia Outstanding Leaders Program, which is an initiative, again, as Jérôme said already, to develop LGBTQ plus talents inside and outside of Nokia, because we have many other companies joining this year, which is quite great.
Thank you, Lilian. Javier.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Natalia, Jérôme, and dear colleagues from our Pride Unite Telco celebration. Thank you for inviting me and Telefonica for this opportunity to share our experience from Telefonica Spain. I'm Javier Rodriguez, and I am an IT project manager in Telefonica. And I do also participate in an enterprise resource group called Entiendo, by meanings I understand you in English. And also I participate in the most crowded sports club here in Barcelona, an LGBTIQ plus and friends sports club. I am the head of a ski section, and I also practice basketball and other sports. And we go around the Pyrenees and abroad, going with the flag, with the rainbow flag around the mountains and wherever it goes. I'm so glad to be here.
That sounds very fun, Javier. You will have to invite us. Thanks. Chris, over to you. First time you are not here in the studio,
hi.
Chris.
Yeah, it's so sad. I'm crying my small tears here. But it's so nice to see that something we started, I would say, internally 5 years ago and opened up externally 3 years ago still lives on. And even without me, even how surprising that is. No, just kidding. You're doing an amazing job. My name is Chris. I work with leadership and culture in Telia, but has also previously worked with diversity and inclusion. And I'm a big advocate for that. I'm a gay man, last time I checked at least, myself as well. And I think it's important that we, even though I feel like a bit burdened, exhausted, I find it tiring to re-traumatize myself every time, the importance of making an impact for others makes me raise my voice, even though it can be a bit exhausting personally. So I think that's why I'm here, and I look forward to get into the conversation with all of these beautiful people here today.
Thank you, Chris. And Steve, my colleague who woke up very early today to be with us, over to you.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Steve, and my pronouns are he, him. I guess I'm a cisgender male ally. I work in Ottawa, Canada. That's where I am now for Ericsson in the R&D organization as a study driver and innovation coach. But my other role is co-chair of the Ericsson North America employee resource group for LGBTQ. I call ourselves ePride. And so I'm kind of representing them and sort of maybe the ally point of view.
Thanks, Steve. And last but not least, Clarissa.
Hello. I'm Clarissa Santana, and my pronouns are she, hers. I'm also an ally of the community, and I've joined Orange Business in Brazil, in Rio, as an intern in 2009. And 6 years ago, I moved to the UK, and I'm currently working as an HR manager, supporting the Nordics and one business area in the UK. And I've always been very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and I had the pleasure of being a special point of contact for corporate social responsibility in Latin America, in Europe as well. And currently, I'm supporting the Northwest cluster to drive this and understand how we can be more caring and inclusive as a company. And I think this event is an amazing opportunity to spread the right message. So thank you for everyone involved in organizing it and who are participating in it as well.
Thanks, Clarissa. So as you can see, we have a great group of panelists. So where do we start? I was saying before that our theme for today is allow, accept, and ally. The piece of this panel is about accept, and we want to confess to everyone that when we were actually designing this, we were like, let's be very careful about word accept, because the intent is not about we need to find acceptance in terms of validation or permission. This is accept in the light of compassion to ourselves, to those around us. And it's a good reminder on that love and identity should never mean living in fear. So if we think and start from that light, and Dakota, he also mentioned a little bit a piece on self-acceptance. So Lillian, let's start with you. What does self-acceptance mean to you? And why do you think we need to talk about it in the light of Pride?
Good question. So I came in Finland about 19 years ago now. I think at the time looking for a place to have a new start and probably hoping to leave some of my uneasy feelings about my identity back in France, where I come from. That didn't work so well. Clearly changing country doesn't really help in such cases, or not much. And I found myself basically in a similar setup a few years after. So no surprises there, of course. But I mean, to your question, fortunately, the people around me, the environment, my friends in Finland then, my wife made my self-discovery possible and much easier than I think it would have been back in France. At least that's how I feel. There's less baggage here in a way, different setup. And yeah, I realized I was transgender around 2017 and also bi around the same year. So it's been rocking my world in an interesting way ever since. But back to your question, I think self-acceptance is finding this courage, this strength, but also the time and to realize who you are and accept it. And the communities, the positive environments are absolutely crucial for this. I think they set the scene for this self-acceptance to happen, basically.
Thanks, Lillian. And tell us a little bit more about how that self-acceptance journey was for you and what maybe others that are listening to this can take any lessons learned from that journey.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been an interesting one, of course. So I guess it started mainly in 2017 when I had an excellent friend and colleague of mine who was absolutely obsessed with Drag Race. That happens. And she was talking really passionately about the latest season, I believe, I'm not sure, and how there was a transgender woman in it. And back then, the idea of someone who was assigned male at birth transitioning to be the woman that, of course, she always has been, and then doing drag on top of that, it sort of broke my little white male cishet brain back then, a little or a lot. So it got me thinking really hard, and it felt absolutely unreal for me at the time that being transgender was something really possible. It was an actual option. So this was an exciting time of discovery, scary as well, of course. I read and understood a lot in the next years. So many of other shared experiences by other people about being transgender. And so many things were echoing my life, my thoughts, my struggles, my experiences too. So, yeah, it became clear that I was a transgender woman, but understanding it intellectually back then and then in your heart and accepting it and deciding to do something about it are, of course, very different things. So this whole period was very full of anxiety, of stress, of depression as well, to be honest. But again, the communities and the people around made that manageable, basically, and just a bad time to go through, and that was all it was. So I finally accepted in 2022 and started coming out late 22 to my wife, who's also my best friend. And then it's been a really nice journey of personal reconstruction, acceptance, discovery. So yeah, again, to your question, I think power and impact of this community, specifically LGBTQ plus community, but also of positive environments, allyship all around, and people who just support you and accept you for who you are, that has a tremendous impact, and it makes a life of a difference, really.
Thank you so much, Lilian. And on that last piece, like really that support system around you and how important it is really to have that community. So yes, we always start with self-acceptance, but then also beyond that, rather whether we like it or not, it is so important that acceptance around us, especially the people that we love the most, those communities that we have to interact with every day. And you mentioned your wife being that strength and that best friend that you needed. When it comes to that, Javier, I know, and you mentioned in your introduction, you have an amazing support system around you and acceptance around you with being part of your ERG at Telefónica, Te Entiendo, but also being part of all these sports initiatives. So please tell us a little bit about that, like how that support system works for you. And yeah, what are your thoughts on the community building around you in that acceptance journey?
First of all, I would like to say that you are not alone. Look around you. Most likely, since the moment you decided to be out and express yourself for who you are, another person next to you was trying to do exactly the same, find out how to be truly themselves. That is why we are all here, to embrace that diversity kindly, friendly, just the way you deserve to be treated. Both myself and my colleagues in Telefónica have started our brand new ARG group, as I say, Te Entiendo, and it means a lot to us. Its main goal is bringing a sense of community to this space, and it has been a long way to get there. We are working hard organizing meetings every 2 weeks with others and businesses, having conversations, communicating, bringing our ideas to improve everything on the corporate side of things. It is funny and how many hours you can put into something without realizing when you really believe in it. You can work in the shadows, discreetly, waiting the time you will have forces to step up to the front, but there is no hurry. If you don't want to do that, we are a support group where you can feel safe, where you can say whatever you want to say, and we can build bridges between professionals to make a better life experience. And for sure, better professionals to make a better life and reach their goals in a more freedom way, being as they really are as persons and professionals. Contact your ERG and feel free to grant your colleagues to discover the best of you. Coming out as a gay man in a corporate structure nowadays seems to be a lot easier than decades before. Unfortunately, we can say the same for our colleagues still fighting in the transgender side and other affairs. I encourage you all to give them a helping hand whenever they have the chance, wherever they are. Be gentle, be kind.
I love that. And sometimes we forget about that. It is really about the basics, being kind, being gentle. Thanks for sharing about that. As part of that support system, sometimes we get that around us, but as I was mentioning at the beginning and sharing some of the data, that's not really the reality everywhere. And even in very progressive countries, we still face a lot of challenges. Even if we go through that self-acceptance, if we get that support system around us. And Chris, let me ask you, what has been one of those most transformative experiences that you have had to go through for you to become that very strong voice out there. Sometimes been helping you to speak on behalf of those who cannot speak, and they want their voices to be heard, but they cannot speak. What has been that for you? And you're on mute.
Thank you, Natalie, for a great question. And trying to answer, I almost get emotional because I don't necessarily see myself as a strong voice and feel so strong inside. And I think that's maybe important to recognize sometimes. But the importance of fighting for a more inclusive world. And I also saw some comments in the chat. What about disabled people? What about colored people? What about the majority? And I just think it's so important, at least for me. I'm not here to fight my own gay fight. I'm using my own story to show one color, and I hope all of the other people out there that feel strong enough can also share their story and add more colors to the rainbow. Because I at least believe that we're fighting just a fight for all of us, just to kind of pull our shoulders down, relax in our own self, feel a sense of belonging. If that's being a bit strange in your personality or coming from a different place or a different industry or whatever, or have bad humor, you should be allowed to have that. So it's in the big and the small that we should be able to be ourselves. And then, of course, as a gay person, I wish I didn't need to use even half of my life just to be able to express that I'm gay. And there the journey started to actually accept myself. I'm not sure if I fully have accepted myself yet, and probably maybe never will, because when you meet every single day in the society, even yesterday, walking around the city holding my partner's hand, I don't hold my partner's hand for the full extensions of that walk because it's too tiring. So I maybe do it in periods, but then, okay, now I can't take the stares or the whispers or the comments. I've also kind of lost several job opportunities along the way, quite clearly, and maybe many more not so clearly. One interview was shut down in 2 seconds when I talked about my partner as a he. Another interview, I was asked to hide that I'm gay, so I was more likely to get the job. I've also been out with my friends on town, being beaten to the ground with a severe concussion. So I was out for 2 weeks. But that said, back to what Dakota says as well, I also have had a successful career. I've also been working with exciting companies and fulfilled all of my dreams. So the one doesn't take the other. And I would just like to raise a thank you to all the people who have been there along the way. It's friends, it's colleagues, it's managers. I don't think I would be alive if I didn't have those people to hold on to along the way, and I would definitely not be here. And even though I'm still a bit scared to always be me, it's worth the fight for a better, more inclusive world for all of us.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's so powerful and such a good reminder that, yes, like to your point, we see you being that strong voice, but it is very vulnerable of you also to share that and have a reminder of, like, at the end, we're all humans, and those feelings can be actually quite heavy, even if we feel very strong about being able to speak up and so on. Thanks for that. And you were saying thank you to everyone who has been around you. And we have mentioned the words allyship. And sometimes that can become really a buzzword. I love when people say ally is not a noun, it's a verb. And being an ally, it is not a title that you can put on yourself as a hat, but someone that the community can give to you. I remember the first time part of our ERG, Jeffrey, if you are watching, that they told us, like, Emma and Natalia, you are true allies for this community. And that's really on the action piece. We always have to remember about it is not a title, it's on the actions. And Steve, you are a great ally of this community. You are leading one of our ERGs in North America. Please tell us a little bit more about allyship and how we make sure that we don't get this word only as a buzzword, but we really act on it. So what allyship means to you, and what got you to become the ally that you are today?
Thank you, Natalia. Well, about the same time that I joined Ericsson, my then son, now daughter, came out as trans femme. And actually, it was a really big relief when that happened, because she was in a pretty dark place, and it was struggling with some mental health issues. And it was as if this great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. We still have some struggles, but I was so glad that she had the courage to do that. Both me and my wife were very glad about that. And so, acceptance was never really in doubt. But understanding was, we didn't, we were a little bit, not exactly blindsided by this, but still somewhat surprised, and didn't really have any experience with the community. And so I joined the Ericsson Pride ERG at that time, so I could understand more and be able to relate better to her story. And that was about 4 years ago, and I'm still involved with the ERG, now leading it. But I have a so much deeper understanding, not just of her journey, but of my journey and everybody in the community. I mean, I don't know everyone's story, obviously, but just have a much deeper empathy, and I feel like it's made me a stronger person, because I understand myself better, I understand other people better, and I'm much more willing to listen and empathize. So, and as an ally, it was someone who has sort of a personal connection, because it's my own daughter that was sort of the motive force behind this. I realized it might be easier for someone with this sort of personal connection to be an ally, because we already have this emotional investment. And the vast majority of people, who are the heteronormative crowd, I guess you could say, they may not have this kind of motive force in their lives. So, but for them, I would say, whether you realize it or not, there are LGBTQ plus people in your life. They could be relatives, friends, colleagues, and you just don't know, or maybe you do know, but reaching out to them, even with the smallest of gestures. I think allyship exists on a spectrum. You can be really heavily engaged, like myself. You can march in protests, or you can just be a very quiet ally and just doing something as simple as wearing, a lanyard at work, or having a pride flag on the back of your computer, like,
Jerome
it all. Jerome, thank you. I'm sorry, I just spaced out on your name there. I'm a little bit ashamed about that. But anyway, just these very small gestures, they can have a big impact, both at sort of the individual level, but also collectively in raising their voice. So I think it's really impingent upon us, the majority, the cisgender majority, who to just reach, as I think Javier was saying, be kind. Just be kind, and this will make the world a better place for all of us.
Thank you, Stu. Any thoughts from anyone? Like, if you would get asked what makes an ally a good ally, what would you say? Like, very short. Anyone who would like to share?
I could then add a concrete example. I think for me, as I said, just kind of being here today is probably due to a lot of people in big or small ways reaching out and being an ally. And I think one good example that many maybe also remember is the shooting in Oslo a couple of years ago, where 2 LGBTQI people were shot. And then I wake up that morning after many of my friends being there that evening, and I got texts from a lot of leaders and the CEOs in our company and colleagues. Hey, are you okay? And even though I was not there, I think it's a true testament of inclusive culture. And just that small thing is so important. Sorry. And I think I'm so sick and tired of being strong. I think we as allies and LGBTQIA plus people should kind of change strong with vulnerable and authentic, because it takes its toll to be strong all the time.
I love that, Chris. Thank you so much. I remember it was actually right after one of these events, and we were like celebrating Pride, and a couple of weeks after that happened, horrible thing happened in Norway. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think like on that allyship journey and perspective of us, that I love that also, Chris. It is not about being strong, but being vulnerable. We have a big responsibility as organizations, and that's really what has drove us to be here, right? Because we know that as individuals we can say a lot, but also how we can leverage on the power of all these big organizations to send a message. Clarissa, you mentioned at the beginning while introducing yourself, you're working on running this agenda for Orange and you're part of the business. What do you think then is the corporate's responsibility and how we can actually make all of this a little bit better?
Well, I think that companies need to be allies and help create those, the safe space and the supportive environment. I mean, we don't have a choice. We do have to challenge discrimination. We do have to help advocate for equal rights and opportunities. And I think make sure that people feel protected to be who they are, and without feeling any sort of discrimination, really. And because it's a fact that the LGBTQ plus individuals often face higher rates of mental health issues due to this discrimination. And we as allies, we can help provide support and understanding and acceptance from that point of view you explained, previously. I think this can significantly improve their well-being and help create this inclusive environment for them. So we need inclusive policies. We need to challenge harmful stereotypes, these microaggressions in the day-to-day basis, I think, and promote acceptance in various settings, and not only at work, but in schools and workplaces, of course, and communities in general. And I do think we also play a really important role in educating other people about LGBTQ plus issues. So we can help dispelling myths, promote understanding, raise awareness, foster the empathy of everyone, and reduce this ignorance that I still see up to this day. I find it really, really difficult that up to today, people having access to loads of information, they still can be very ignorant about a lot of things related to this. And it really hurts me as an ally of the community. It hurts me, and I cannot even imagine how it hurts the people that are actually, part of the community as being gay and as being queer. And I think it's really crucial that we recognize and address as well that there are unique challenges faced by the LGBTQ plus people that are also belonging to other minority groups. Mm-hmm. So we have Black people, for example, we have people with disabilities, people who have low income backgrounds. And when they are also part of the community, there is an extra factor that I think adds up on the discrimination. I think we all know that as well. And I think we can really strive to understand and support these diverse experiences within the community. And we have to remember that being an ally is an ongoing process of learning, listening, taking actions to support the community. As Steve said, they can be little actions, they can be bigger actions, but we absolutely have to do something. If we see something that doesn't look quite okay, we have to report it. We have to sort of consider ourselves as the ones that are being hurt as well. I think it has to be personal for everybody.
Thanks, Clarissa. I love especially the part of like a good reminder of every experience is very unique. And Chris, you were mentioning before about like that intersectionality perspective, how we also bring the light into that. Good. We have the last 10 minutes of the panel. I want to take some of the questions that we are receiving in the chat. By the way, please feel free to send any questions that you have in the chat. We are going to be asking all the panelists. And I want to start with this one. When we're talking about vulnerability, and the question is, what gives you courage to be vulnerable and stand up for what's right, either as part of the community or as an ally? What gives you courage? Because to your point, Chris, this is like, it is a hard job, a hard role to take on. So what gives you courage to continue? Who would like to answer?
I can start.
Thank you, Lillian.
I guess
Go.
maybe, of course, I guess maybe two things. So first, knowing that there's going to be a community as well. I'm not the only one who will stand up and who will actually talk about this or mention it. There's a community, there's people behind who can also support, who will be there to help. And yeah, I'm just not alone. And then the other aspect is probably also that this will touch someone very dearly. There's going to be a major impact for someone somewhere who will listen to this, who will see this, or who will be affected by this. So the knowledge that you make someone's life different from their own by doing this, and also that you will have support as well if you ask for it, or there will be people always there to support you somewhere. You just have to find them, which is sometimes interesting.
Thank you, Lillian. I saw in the chat that someone wrote, visibility can save lives. And I think that's very powerful, like to your point, right? Making sure that we go back also to that bigger why. This goes beyond the awareness, the flag. It's really about people's experiences and lives. Thank you. We have another question, and it is about, we were talking about allyship. I asked about what makes a good ally, but then the question is what we should not do as ally. What are those things that maybe you have experienced, maybe that you have faced, that you say, please, let's don't do that. And I just say this with the remark of course, allyship is not about perfection. It is not about being a perfect ally, and needs to be that space for us to kind of like fail and then go to the next one. But what we shouldn't do as allies. Who would like to go?
I think that I think Dakota spoke about it a bit earlier. I wouldn't invade people's privacies because I think, again, they are people, right? We're all people by the end of the day. And what you wouldn't like to be asked, you shouldn't ask other people, regardless.
Yeah.
So I think it's just being mindful of the fact that, you know, you may be curious, you may want to know things, but probably it should be better to do some research rather than ask every little thing you want directly to people that may hurt their feelings and that may feel that they have their privacy, you know, not respected. Yeah. So like every time I want to know more about something, rather than asking someone, because it can be very private, I'll just, you know, Google it. As simple as that, you know, and we have a lot of information today. So we have a lot of powerful sources, very, you know, trustworthy sources. So there's literally no excuse for you not to be, I think, educated anymore. That's just my view.
I agree, Clarissa.
And just to add,
Chris, please. And then go with
yeah,
Javier.
just to add on that, I think Dakota also said something really good, like practice with friends or those who are a bit closer to you, because they are usually a bit less sensitive and you have the trust, you have the bond. So many of my friends, they test the most outrageous questions or practices with me, and then, you should probably not do this and not that. So, or that you see some role models, for example, if I can support, I'm not sensitive to anything. So kind of throw it at me so I can help you be better at others. So I think finding those people that you can almost practice allyship with first, and then you're probably better with the ones you don't know that well.
I like that. Thanks, Chris. Javier, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and taking the Dakota words and don't make assumptions because sometimes something is so gayish or something is so LGBT-ish, and it is funny to make a safe place, to make a safe community, and making friends in the journey. It's the best way to do it. Making safer privacy, making safer places, and you will have fun with it.
Yeah, thank you. I take three things from what you said. I think first one, I love the concept of flip and test. Like just think about what you're going to say, what you're going to do if you would do it with someone else. And if the answer is no, let's better don't do it. Second, intent versus impact. One thing it's about being curious, but really to Dakota's point, what is the intent of those questions? And third one, let's how do you say that? Let's make it heavier also for the community and giving them the responsibility to educate everyone. It's already a big thing, right, of self-discovery, but that's not the responsibility of the community. I'm thinking about any community, any underrepresented community. Let's take that with us, that ownership, and educate ourselves too. Thank you. Chris, we have one very specific question for you. And the question is, how can we be a good colleague for someone who is going through what you went through? What are those things that you would like to see or that you have had that has been helpful in those situations?
Yes, that's a good question. And I don't share my story because somebody should feel sorry for me or empathetic or something. So I think for me, that's an important element. We are nobody to feel sorry for or be too caring or empathetic towards. I have had good colleagues, partners, friends along the way, and leaders who have still had the same expectations to me, delivery-wise, performance-wise, and so on, but also just being a shoulder or a person that, okay, we can start the meeting to talk about this shooting in Norway, and I cried a bit, and we ventilated, but not more than a couple of minutes, and then we could go over to work and what we need to deliver. Because it's not an excuse for me either to not be part of a culture, to perform well, to be here for what I'm set to do in my role, but it can be acknowledged and be seen, be heard, and then it makes it easier for me to perform even better. So I think those two hand in hand, I think is the perfect match. The same as everybody else, we should have the expectations, but maybe just listening or being there when it hurts or are difficult.
Thank you, Chris. And we have one last question for everyone before we close today's panel. If there would be one thing that you would like everyone who is watching today, I actually don't have the numbers yet on how many people are watching, but I'm sure more than 1,000. If there is one thing that you would like everyone to do or to know, what would be that thing? Like very short in these last 3 minutes that we have. Lilian, let's start with you, please.
Sure. Very short is always a challenge. I would go with share your stories and act. Share your stories because without stories and life experiences that I found online and that I read and everything, I would not have known, at least not as early as that, who I was and how to go through this. So share your stories. It matters. Somewhere someone will read them and it will click for them and they will not feel alone and estranged anymore. And act because for allies, I mean, individuals, it can be simple and impactful. You can join a Pride march. You can have a Pride sticker on your laptop that was mentioned earlier. So you can normalize queerness and make it a part of your world and of everything around you. And for organizations, bigger companies are really good at lobbying for better regulations that benefit them for profit and productivity. They can also do it for LGBTQ rights, of course, or any kind of minority. It was mentioned before, intersectionality. They should do that. Included employees, seen employees make for better workers. So it's all in their benefit to look at the scientific results on this and actually act also for lobbying for the LGBTQ community in their own countries or elsewhere.
Thanks, Lilian. Visibility and action. Let's go to you, Javier.
Well, acceptance hasn't been the best because of the education and society. So it's time to change because we are the society we want to be. And we can choose the education we want for the new generations to come. I am excited to ask you, will you enroll me with this army? We cannot wait for the rainbow souls to connect with us, with each other. We are all united under the colors the rainbow flag has and all the new ones that are being added all the new time.
Love that. Thanks, Javier. So join. Let's join the movement.
Yeah, join, acceptance.
Chris?
Yeah, so I would say two things. First, it starts from within. How can we include people who don't necessarily know who they are? And that goes for the majority and everybody. So bringing more of your colors, no matter who you are or what kind of group you belong to. Dress a bit different, talk a bit different. If you have that bad humor, bring that to work. Talk a bit about the personal differences or weirdnesses and bring more colors to the workplace. Because I think adhering to the same language, to the same dress profile and so on will make us more alike and try to fit into the norm instead of being ourselves. So just start to be yourself more and bring that colors. Then secondly, what's close to us becomes important to us. So a couple of years ago, I didn't have any close to me that was trans. So I invited people on Facebook and Instagram, hey, can I get to know you? Can we take a coffee? I want to learn. I want to educate myself. And today I have some friends. And it makes it easier for me to include when it's so dear to my heart that it's a couple of my friends. So surround yourself with a bit more diverse, weird, queer, whatever people, so it gets normalized for you as well.
Thank you, Chris. So being vulnerable to be unique and making sure that we take accountability to understand more. Thank you. Steve.
Well, I think we're all actually quite lucky here. We are, I think, all work for organizations and live in places where it's relatively safe to be ourselves. It's not, as you mentioned at the outset, Natalia, that's not true everywhere. I think it's really important for us to, because we can, to tell our stories, to echo what Lillian was saying. And this gives hope and sheds some, shines a little bit of light on the community and give those people who are less fortunate the hope that things will get better. Things do get better. And you have to strive for that. So we need to get that message out.
Thanks, Steve. Let's live with that hope up. Last but not least, Clarissa.
So I think I just say something that is extremely simple, but it's always powerful, which is to respect people and just be kind to people. Do not assume things about them, about their stories. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know about their struggles, their vulnerabilities, and just be supportive and kind. And if you don't know what to do to be supportive, just ask what the person needs. Because the person may not need anything. So do not assume that the person needs something from you. I think that's one really important thing. And I suppose that's a part of being an ally. And you don't have to fully understand something you don't go through. But you absolutely have to respect. I think that is also something I've learned. Because I constantly hear people saying, oh, but I don't understand how this can happen. Well, we don't have to understand. That's not your life, right? So I think worry about your own life and respect other people's journeys. I think that's the main message here. And I can absolutely see that as an ally, really, because that's why I try and do, I do every day. And get yourself informed. I mean, I cannot say this enough because there's no more room for, discriminatory comments or things that may hurt other people.
Yeah.
That's my message.
Thanks, Clarissa. So back to what Chris said, take accountability and a lot of respect. It has been a common word throughout today. Thank you so much to the 5 of you for joining. We're moving forward to the next section of today's agenda. Another message, another video from some of our executives from all these organizations on allyship. Let's watch that.
I believe in diversity because diversity for me means dignity. dignity to be yourself, and to hold your head up high regardless of your life preferences. A diverse life is a dignified life.
To me, it's important to showcase my own and the company's values by actively engaging in events such as Global Telco Pride, but even more importantly, acting along those values in our daily works. As a manager and as a colleague, I want my team members to feel safe to be who they are when they come to work, not being limited by jargon or outdated norms.
Being open to different ways of thinking is especially important for us because we are in the innovation business. And true innovation only happens when people feel safe and supported to take risks and challenge the status quo. That means encouraging psychological safety and making sure everybody on our team feels like they can be themselves at work.
In this industry, and in every industry, we need to be active champions of inclusion. We need to break down those unconscious walls and hold people back. Educate yourself, speak up for others, and celebrate diversity. It's not just the right thing to do. It strengthens our teams, fuels innovation, and creates a workplace where everyone thrives. So let's together build a telecom industry where everyone feels like they belong. Let's become the allies we all deserve. Thank you.
Powerful messages from senior leaders at Telia, Tele2, Nokia, and Tre. So I liked how several of those messages are around speaking up, learning, and also having visible actions, behaviors to make people around you feel safe, and as a result, also productive. So as we come to the end of this event, Natalia and I would like to share a couple of closing thoughts. We hope that today's discussions, stories, panel have inspired you to take action within your own organization and communities. So let's make sure that continue to support one another as we end soon Pride Month. So allyship is not just a June thing. So first, if you have attended this event, thank you. So you took already a first step in your allyship journey. If you don't know where to go from there, what I really encourage folks to do is to look for information about your LGBT plus employee resource group, join if you haven't already. These groups are a great resource so that you can learn from the community, you can participate in events. If you join tomorrow, we're not going to ask you to march in your city the next day. So it's really about small steps, learning, being willing to unlearn something that you have learned before and then relearn them. Just showing this willingness to learn is really all it takes to be part of this community. If you are already part of an employee resource group, there is one easy way, and I think it's come back several times earlier in this event, that you can demonstrate support, that you can be visible. It is by, for example, having some rainbow stickers or badges, as Natalia has also, to express visibility and to show to folks around you, even if some folks may not have come out or be in a position to come out. These small steps, by being visible, really help to create this inclusive and safe work environment. So with that, Natalia, how do we end?
Thank you so much, Jerome. But thank you, everyone. To your point, everyone already took the first step just by being here today. And as Jerome said, let's continue the conversation. This is not about one event, 1 month. So let's make sure that we continue the conversation, that we take all the lessons learned from today on respect, kindness, not making assumptions, and not also about being perfect. So just note that the recording of this session will be available on the same website where you found all the information about today's event, on telcopride.eu. Please show us all your feedback and all your love on social media. You can use #TelcoPride. And definitely, I think we are all committed, and hopefully we get even more organizations next year for Global Telco Pride 2025. So thank you so much. I got to know that there is lots of love in the chat, so thank you so much. The love back to you. Thanks to Dakota and to all the panelists, and see you next year for sure.
All right.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Stay proud.